your cell phone next to you. If you see something in the chat, have it on as well as that screen. Thank you. Perfect. Okay.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Café IBTTA. I'm Pat Jones. My guest today is Jannine Miller. In January 2023, Jannine began serving as Executive Director of the State Road and Tollway Authority, the Atlanta Region Transit Link Authority, and the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority. Nominated by Governor Kemp and voted by the boards of these vital transportation authorities, Jannine leads 3 agencies that have the shared mission and focus of improving mobility in Georgia by providing reliable, safe, innovative, multimodal transportation solutions. In addition to these roles, Jannine also serves as Governor Kemp's appointee as Director of Planning for the Georgia Department of Transportation, GDOT. Prior to GDOT, Jannine served as Deputy Assistant Secretary at the U.S. Department of Transportation, advancing policy and program improvements across modes, including the Federal Railroad Administration, the Federal Highway Administration, the Build America Bureau, and the Maritime Administration. Jannine, welcome to Café IBTTA. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks, Pat. It's great to be here.
Well, today, a big shout out to IBTTA and everybody who is associated with helping us build and design and architect our new offices. This is the first time I'm doing Café IBTTA from IB offices in a long time. And our address, somebody I'm sure will put it in the chat, is 1101 14th Street Northwest, Suite 625, Washington, D.C. 20005. So if you're interested in meeting us in DC in person, please come to that address. We won't be at any other address. All right. So, well, this is Café IBTTA, where we drink coffee and talk about things that are interesting, relevant, uplifting, and fun. And we want to get started with your questions right away. Jannine, as you know, lives in Atlanta, Georgia metropolitan area. And in the chat, I would ask you to write, what are your favorite things about Atlanta? And is it, Jannine, is it Hotlanta today? Is it really Hotlanta?
If it's summer, it's hot here, but we're used to it. It is.
Yeah. Well, I know if Buddy Croft was watching with us, he would type into the chat, the Braves. He's from Rhode Island, but his favorite team is the Atlanta Braves. Okay, World of Coke, the Aquarium. Ah, my son lives in Brookhaven. Great. Buckhead, all day. All right, you're going to have to fill us in on that, Jannine. That I'm not familiar. The People, Rosa, of course, it's the People. All right, that's great. Fox Brothers Barbecue, the wide array of restaurants, MLK Center, College Football Hall of Fame, Georgia Bulldogs. Wow, a lot of good stuff. What do you think, Jannine? Is this all familiar to you?
It sounds like we have some people who are familiar with Georgia, and I love it. And I love the Peach Pass lanes. We're giving a shout out. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent.
Jackets.
Well,
yep.
Yeah, Peach Pass. Well, Jannine, let's talk about you. You know, for many of our guests, transportation is something that they fell into, but that's not the case with you. Your interest in transportation goes all the way back to your childhood. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I don't think that I had the word transportation on my, on my tongue at that point. As a young child, you don't know a word with all those syllables, but I just knew I liked things that were moving and getting things and people where they needed to go. And so that showed up in things like Matchbox cars. I had a collection of Matchbox cars that we loved to ride around on little maps that we drew on a big sheet, and designed roads like in a diorama I had to create for second grade project. I designed Lombard Street in San Francisco. I'd never been there, but I'd heard about this really cool road that was all twisty and neat. So I made a diorama out of it. at some point, maybe it was like fourth grade, not from an assignment or anything. I just thought, well, let's see, there's this car called a Volvo and it has a little male symbol. Well, why don't females have a car? So I'm going to design a car for women. And I took a piece of paper and sketched it out with a pencil, and I called it the Ladybug, and it looked like a blend between a Porsche and a Beetle, Volkswagen Beetle. And I just was really compelled by things that were about moving and transporting, getting people and things where they want to go.
And this was in the 4th grade, huh? You created your own car called the Ladybug, huh?
Yeah. Yep. Way back.
So Jannine, tell us, where did that lead? You know, as you went through your adolescence and young adulthood and all that good stuff, what kind of things were you doing in transportation? What attracted you? What inspired you?
Well, the first thing that inspired was getting my own car, my own very first car. And the freedom that comes with that as a teenager, especially in the suburbs, maybe not so much in urban areas today. But in the suburbs, a car meant you are your own individual person, and the responsibility too that comes along with that is you can't keep the gas tank full on dreams. You got to go to a job. And so it really just, it spawned, I think, so much maturity just to get my very first car. But it didn't turn for me into anything professional until I was working on my master's degree. I actually started at Georgia State University downtown, and was working on my MBA. I started on the Master of Business Administration program. I was standing on the platform at the MARTA station and looked over, and from the MARTA station at Georgia State University, you can see the Gold Dome, the capital of the state of Georgia, right here in downtown Atlanta. And it occurred to me that is where things get done. Important things happen. Decisions are made that affect all of our citizens and businesses. And that's where I want to go and do my next career in public administration. So I switched my major and studied in a concentration called economic development and community planning. And within that, I just grasped on back to where my instinct was in transportation, started thinking about transit, started thinking about managing a transportation network, and the planning of communities that intersects with how people get in and out and around in those communities, and the economic burgeoning that occurred when people and things can move better. The bug came back and it stuck with me.
That's great. That's great. From a child, from a 4th grader, from a young child playing with Matchbox cars, to a 4th grader designing your own car, then your master's degree, and seeing that you really wanted to be an influencer in public policy affecting transportation and mobility. So you are a they call the kids that grow up with smartphones digital natives. You are a transportation native, right? You grew up loving and being invested in transportation.
I've never heard that term, but it seems to fit. I like it.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jannine, so now fast forward a number of years, you're the executive director of 3 transportation organizations in the state of Georgia. The one I'm familiar with most, the State Road and Tollway Authority, but 2 others. Tell us what that is like. What is it like to be the head of those 3 organizations, and what's your portfolio like?
Well, I want to first clarify that I inherited this role from an amazing individual I've known for more than a decade, Chris Tomlinson, who was the one who assembled all of the administration and policy alignment of the 3 agencies, the 3 authorities that I'm the executive director of. So I came into a role that Chris established with incredible skill and depth, and also, more importantly than anything, brought an amazing team of people together. So I'm very, very thankful for how well this organization, and it is 3 authorities with different boards, but really one mission, and that's to improve mobility Georgians and our visitors and our businesses. So it sounds more daunting than it is, thankfully, for those who have paved the path before me. That said, it also is really exciting, though, to have these three organizations. One is around CERTA, of course, the toll projects and express toll lanes that we have in existence today, the finance that goes into even non-toll projects over a multi-year, and understanding the resources and the risk that are affiliated with transportation projects. Infrastructure Bank is also here at CERTA, as we call it. But with the ATL, the Atlanta Region Transit Link Authority, it gives us the opportunity to bring in the real efficiencies that can come when you've got transit on an express toll lane.
Right.
That the more people, it's about moving people, more you can get into fewer vehicles. Hey, guess what? The lower the cost is for everybody. So we have that opportunity here because of the merging of these modes coming together in one place and one staff to think through that and execute in a very unique and impactful way.
Jannine, I'm glad you mentioned Chris Tomlinson. Chris, longtime service on the IBTTA Board of Directors in his role at CERTA, also was president of IBTTA in 2019. And I just happen to have on the bureau behind me a gift that Chris gave me at the end of his term as president of IBTTA. It's a compass, and it was just his way of saying thanks to me for helping him navigate the chairs of the executive committee and leading IBTTA. And he is a great role model and mentor. So I'm really glad you mentioned Chris. Well, Jannine, as the state planning director, you're tasked with establishing the long-term strategic goals for Georgia's infrastructure investments and coordination at all levels of government. That's a pretty big job. Can you tell us a little bit more about that role at Georgia DOT?
It's pretty standard, I would say. I think it's common and probably required by the federal government for there to be a planning office, planning activities, and therefore a director of planning at every state Department of Transportation. So that's not unique. The work that we do is across the board, looking into the future of what the demands on our transportation network is going to look like, trying to make sure we're complying with federal and state laws and do public involvement as we assemble investment lists and the execution path for the engineers to design and build the roads and other transportation systems in the state. So that's not unique. What is unique in Georgia is that the director of planning is appointed by the governor. And why would that be? It's simply a function and a factor of the Department of Transportation in the state constitution. Is the board of this Department of Transportation is appointed by the legislature entirely. The governor doesn't have a role to play there. And in the Constitution and the laws of the state, the commissioner, who is the CEO of the Department of Transportation here in Georgia, is appointed by the board. So we all work to support the governor, whomever that is. But by Constitution, there was, prior to the appointment of the director of planning by the governor, there wasn't within the operations and decision making within the department, there was no direct governor role. That came about 14 years ago through a state law change that enabled the then governor at the time to feel confident about more resources becoming available, more funds available to the Department of Transportation, and great things have happened in the tens of billions of dollars since then, simply because of a required joint working together, multi-branch management of the Department of Transportation that has worked incredibly well. There have been 3 directors of planning appointed by the governor before me, who again established the role as a partner and embedded within the team, the executive team of the CEO. And the commissioner, Russell McMurray, today, he and I, we are on the same page on everything. It's just, we work so well together. It's really a gift, I think, for us and our teams, but also for the way our transportation system is managed and invested. Also in state law, the commissioner of the Department of Transportation is on the CERTA board. So there is that cross-pollination that occurs there. And the commissioner of GDOT is also on the board of the Atlanta Transit Link Authority. So we really have embedded in state law, found ways to make sure that we are working well together. And it's not a hard task at all. It works phenomenally well.
Jannine, your predecessor, Chris Tomlinson, has weighed in. He said Jannine is being modest about the role she played with shaping Greta and CERTA over her career across her many public service roles. What I hear you saying is that there was a clear path when you got there, and that you're able to follow a path that others have helped to lay down in front of you. Chris is saying, hey, you've got a lot of talent on your own. You've brought a lot to bolster that organization. Sounds like a little mutual admiration society here.
It is, I think, and that's because Chris and I have worked together. Like I said, I think Chris probably going on 15 years or more at this point. Yeah. And in it together from lower policy roles where we could see all of the aspects working together and then sometimes not working together, and from never tell how long. Okay, thank you. From learning and seeing what things might not be working as well as they could, use ideas spawn about how it can be improved. Yeah. And we're both just public servants now. Chris is in the private sector, but he carries that with him, I know, to his work today. Once public service is in your blood, and once transportation is in my spirit, it's just natural. If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, right?
Amen. Amen. Jannine, you mentioned earlier when you were a child, you designed a car called the Ladybug, and you said something about, hey, some people are designing cars for men, but what about for women? And there are many women in the upper ranks of CERTA and Greta and ATL. Tell us more about that, about the role of women in your organizations.
Well, I have to say that started when I started at CERTA initially 17-ish years ago, 18 years ago, when the first woman executive director of CERTA, Rosa Roundtree, hired me. And I was honored to be able to work at this authority, honored to work under her leadership. And at the time, Terry Slack was also a woman on the executive team at CERTA as the CFO. So the female women leadership here at CERTA goes way back, and we're just carrying on that legacy, we hope, with pride and diligence and excitement about the work that we do together. So of our current executive team leaders here at CERTA, 5 of the 6 of us are women. On CERTA board, 20% of our CERTA board is women. And then even kind of reaching over to the boards of Greta and ATL, 20-30% of those board members are women. Our staff are 60% women here. So we're very excited to be doing this work, and the camaraderie that comes with it is important. But our devotion to our teams working well, to our organizations performing well and highly, and for mostly producing great results for our customers. That's what it's really about for all of us.
Hello, everybody. This is Café IBTTA, and our guest is Jannine Miller, Executive Director of the State Road and Tollway Authority in Georgia and 2 other organizations, and Director of Planning for the Georgia DOT. We're taking your questions. We'd love to hear your questions in the chat. And in the meantime, I have another question for you, Jannine. there's going to be more express lanes coming to the Atlanta region. As I read, more than 100 miles of new express lanes in Atlanta. Tell us more about that.
Very exciting. Well, let's see. Our ability to even contemplate the construction of new express toll lanes did not come easily. It was with a very concerted policy decision set back in 2007, 2008, again, led by Rosa Roundtree at the time and supported by the governor and the legislature, to convert our HOV lanes to hot 3 lanes. So they were HOV 2, increased HOV to 3, and told the remaining capacity. What an incredibly bold, brave, and correct decision to make, because those lanes were underperforming even for HOV 2s. They were getting bogged down in traffic, just like the general purpose lanes.
Right.
So we went and applied for and ultimately received a grant from the Secretary Peters administration to convert our HOV to hot lane and to put some of those resources toward express buses. And again, allowing a lower cost commute, more and reliable commute for everyone in that corridor with the conversion of those lanes. It was a hard push. The general public was not sure about what these things were going to be, and I think that's an understatement. But it didn't take long for the traveling public to understand the value and the benefits, not mandatory toll lanes, but the option when you need it to pay a small toll to get where you need to go with reliability. That paved the way for the construction of new express toll lanes. Pretty soon it was really a coveted option in other corridors. We want that option too. We didn't have HOVs to convert necessarily. We knew that if we could build new 2 lanes heading in one direction, we could accommodate even more passenger cars and transit vehicles and van pools. So that construction, the permitting underway, and construction occurred on I-75. This is both on the south side of the region, south of the airport, and north up near the Braves Stadium, and north into Cobb and Cherokee County. So we've got about 120 lane miles right now, and those new lanes are reversible. But we at the time didn't have the ability, we didn't have the financial wherewithal to afford anything more than reversible lanes.
Yeah.
Because we are now seeing the ability of other regions to do a public-private partnership where private equity comes in to finance these really high-performing critical pieces of infrastructure, new express toll lanes. We're not doing reversible build-outs anymore. We're building 2 lanes in each direction. We're in procurement right now for Georgia 400, which radiates out of the north central part of Metro Atlanta through some of our most critical employment centers in North Fulton. Those will be the first to go to contract next year with private developer and the support, we hope, of the Build America Bureau, and very thankful for their support and diligence as we work to get this exactly right for taxpayers and toll payers. Then we'll do I-285, which is the perimeter, kind of the northern part of the perimeter.
Right.
Again, what's great about this is if you're familiar with Atlanta, 75 and 85 come in from the north, east, and west. And in between those, we were going to build 2 lanes in each direction. We could only afford, as public sectors, this without private investment, we could only afford 1 lane in each direction going down what's called the east and west wall. Well, guess what? There's value there. We just didn't have the budget for it. Private developers, we believe, are going to be able to expand that to 2 lanes in each direction, all the way from I-20, the whole entire top half or more than half of 285, which is the most traveled perimeter road in the southeast, and is a major thoroughfare for truck and passenger through traffic for the entire country. Has some of the top bottlenecks on it. On any bottleneck list you'll see for the United States are on that perimeter roadway. And so with the private dollars coming in partnership with public sector, we're going to be able to build the infrastructure that's going to last for decades and provide that reliable option that doesn't exist today. We can't build them fast enough. because construction takes a while. We know, but we also know we have to get the design right, and the finance has to go through all the due diligence that is required for such a long-term contract. But it's really unique, and we're excited about this. All you'll need is one Peach Pass. That will get you on into every one of our express toll lanes, and we'll continue to be that provider of that customer interface for those folks who are using that express toll lane.
Jannine, more and more I hear our members say that this is an exciting time to be in transportation, and the example of these expansion of the express lanes for CERTA is just another example of that. It must be amazingly exciting to be in your role at this time.
It absolutely is. Again, it's a factor of what has led to this over the decades, no doubt. But really what I think is the most exciting about this is the people who are the thought leaders, who are the brave decision makers, and that are in elected and appointed positions along with me. That includes, of course, the governor and the General Assembly, but also my colleagues and peers at other agencies. I've mentioned Commissioner Russell McMurray at GDOT. There's the CEO and General Manager of MARTA, Metro Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority. That's our subway system here in our local bus, Collie Greenwood. And the relatively new director of the Atlanta Regional Commission, which is our MPO for Atlanta, Anna Roach. The four of us uniquely appointed to our positions to get great things done. And the collaboration that we have already, in the short 6 months I've been here, been able to enact is so promising for the future. One of which is a new bus rapid transit. The Summer Hill BRT, this is the area where Brave Stadium used to be. It's now going to be a dedicated bus lane for most of the 3 miles. A fraction of the cost, literally, of a light rail. And the speed to implementation is also a fraction. What we're going to get open within 2 years would have taken 10 years with a rail system. And we're going to be employing that same approach of what's called bus rapid transit. They've named it here rapid. Again, there is partnership with GDOT to help with some of the paving. There's partnership with the Atlanta Regional Commission to get it green lighted and supported through the planning process with some funding. And being able to I sit on the MARTA board and support in every way we can the deployment of this really smart, quick, low cost, highly effective transit option. It's our first deployment of BRT in the region, and it's not our last. Our biggest, most important BRT is going to be on I-285 as well. It's going to feel like a train and cost to taxpayers what a bus would cost. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Jannine, we've got a great question here in the chat from Shannon Swank. Just how are you able to push forward with everything that you are doing? What do you do for fun? Huh? What's going on behind all of this planning and pushing and getting stuff done? What else happens?
Well, I got to tell you, the fun happens during the office time too. I mean, we have a great time as a team. We make sure that we're where we're making big decisions, having hard conversations, really pushing through stuff that we're like, why do we have to deal with this? Or why is this happening? We always bring levity into it, and we make sure to keep it as low stress as possible. That's the only way really to do that, to building trust and knowing we can depend on each other during the hard times and the good times. So that's absolutely part of it. And this team here at CERTA, Greta ATL is simply the best I've ever worked with, the best you'll find as a group. But after hours, there's Atlanta's a great place to do all kinds of things: Braves games, concerts, live music, fun with friends. And we also have, I think, one of the biggest tennis leagues in the country. So I love to play tennis, and I get on the court when I can. And
we're going to have to get Andy Freemier, our president, to come to Atlanta, because he's a very competitive tennis player and is always looking for the opportunity to play.
Well, now let's not talk about competition here. I just get out there to chase a green ball around the court.
All right, Jannine, I'm going to make a couple of announcements, and then I'm going to come back to you for some final words of wisdom. So don't forget to complete the survey that you'll receive at the end of today's program. We always like your feedback. We have a number of upcoming events. July 30th through August 1 is our Maintenance, Engineering, and Roadway Operations Workshop in Nashville. October 6th through 10 is the next Board of Directors meeting and IBTTA's annual meeting in Seattle. November 12 through 14 is our Global Tolling Summit in Athens, Greece. And please check the IBTTA website for details on all our in-person and virtual events. So Jannine, back to you. What final words of wisdom do you have before we sign off today?
There is really, really amazing, impactful thing that happens, and that is you have to think big, even if you're small. You have to envision a future before you can ever start taking steps toward making it happen. And I think that is, maybe going back to designing Lombard Street or a car is what's the passion and the purpose behind it. It's got to be bigger than what we see in front of us today. And anyone who's in public service and working in infrastructure knows that. I think what's important for us to do as we work in infrastructure is to help convey that, though, back to the general public today, because they are not thinking that far ahead. That's not their job. That's ours. Our job is, though, to translate it back to what's meaningful to people today. And that's part of what I love about leading a toll authority and serving our customers with express toll lanes, because it matters to them every day, to our customers, that they've been able to pay a small fee for an incredible value, taking stress out of their life, bringing reliability into their drive, and just a satisfaction that they've been able to use their time wisely on a day-to-day basis. So I think that's number one. And the other is there's a quote in a song that I love that says, "Life is about the people you meet and what you create with them." And none of us do it on our own. And it really is all creation, even though there might be a lot of science and numbers and finance and law to it. The creativity that we have to make big, good, important things happen. We don't do it ourselves. We do it with others.
Beautiful. Jannine, thanks for being our guest on Café IBTTA today. Thanks for your passion, vision, leadership, and wisdom. It's been an absolute pleasure. And to all our guests, be safe, keep in touch, and we'll see you down the road. Thanks, everybody.